Good evening, my friends. I want to begin tonight with something unusual. I want to give you the answer first. Not at the end, not after a long build-up, not as the dramatic reveal you have to sit through an hour to receive. Right now, in the first minute, before I've said almost anything else. Here it is. Stop feeding doubt your attention. Return to your assumption. Do it within 30 seconds. That's it. That is the entire teaching for tonight. Now you might be thinking that's too simple. Surely there's more to it than that. Surely I've been battling doubt for months or years because the solution is more complicated than that. And that thought, that instinct to reach for complexity, is itself a product of the very pattern we're dismantling tonight. Stay with me, because while the principle is simple, truly understanding it in a way that reaches past the intellectual and lands somewhere permanent requires that we go deeper. We need to look at what doubt actually is, why fighting it has never worked, and why 30 seconds is the precise window that changes everything. So let's begin. First, I need to show you what doubt actually is, because most people have it completely wrong. Most people believe doubt is a reasonable response to uncertainty, that it is logical, proportionate, even wise. Of course I doubt, I don't have evidence yet. Of course I question, I can't see how it will work. And so they treat their doubt with a kind of respect, even deference. They sit with it, they examine it, they try to answer its questions and address its concerns. But doubt is not a reasonable response to lack of evidence. Doubt is the result of a divided mind. Here is what is actually happening when you doubt. You are holding two completely opposing realities in your consciousness simultaneously. One part of you is saying, I have my desire. It is done. It is mine. And another part is saying, with equal conviction, I do not have it. It is not here. I cannot see it. Having and not having. Fulfilled and unfulfilled. Yes and no. At the same time, in the same consciousness, and your consciousness, which cannot function in two places at once, which must eventually choose a state to operate from, does what it always does under these conditions. It defaults to whichever reality feels most familiar, most solid, most real. And for most people, the physical evidence, the empty bank account, the absent relationship, the body that still hurts feels more real than the imagined state. So consciousness lands there, and you call it doubt. But it's not doubt. It's just the heavier assumption winning by default. This distinction matters enormously, because if doubt is a reasonable response to circumstances, you have to fix the circumstances before you can get rid of it. You are trapped. You need the evidence before you can have the faith. But you need the faith before you can generate the evidence. A perfect airtight loop of paralysis. But if doubt is simply divided consciousness, two competing assumptions, one of which you have been unconsciously feeding more than the other, then the solution becomes instantly clear. Stop feeding the wrong one. Now let's talk about why everything you've been trying hasn't worked. When doubt appears, what do most people do? They fight it. They argue with it. They try to reason it into submission. They stack affirmations on top of it like sandbags against a flood. They search desperately for evidence that doubt is wrong, for proof that the manifestation is coming, for signs that the law is working, for any scrap of external validation that will finally quiet the voice. And some days they win these arguments, and some days they lose them. But here is the deeper problem, the thing nobody talks about. Every time you fight doubt, you are confirming that doubt is real. Think about it. You do not argue with things that have no power over you. You do not barricade doors that pose no threat. The very act of deploying a defense is an acknowledgement that there is something worth defending against. When you spend 30 minutes in a mental battle against doubt, constructing counter-arguments, reciting affirmations, searching for proof, you are not defeating doubt, you are legitimizing it. You are treating it as a worthy opponent, a real force that requires your full attention and considerable resources to overcome. And consciousness, which is always watching what you give your attention to, registers this engagement as reality. Doubt wins not because it is strong. Doubt wins because you keep showing up to fight it. This is the trap. And most people spend years inside it, exhausting themselves in an endless cycle. Doubt appears, battle ensues. Doubt temporarily retreats, doubt returns. Repeat indefinitely. Fighting doubt is exactly like fighting a shadow. The harder you swing, the more real it becomes. So here is the technique. And I want you to understand not just what to do, but why every element of it is precisely calibrated. The moment doubt appears, the instant you feel that familiar wavering, that undercurrent of, but what if this doesn't work? But what if it's not real? But what about the evidence? You do three things in rapid succession. First, you catch it. Immediately within 5 seconds of it appearing, you name it internally, not with alarm, not with dread, with the calm, almost bored recognition of someone who has seen this before. There's doubt, that's all. You don't analyze it. You don't try to understand why it appeared or what it means or whether it has a point. You simply observe it, the way you might observe a cloud passing overhead. There it is. Second, you dismiss it, not by arguing, not by explaining why it's wrong, but with a clean, firm, disinterested refusal of engagement. Find the phrase that works for you: not interested, that's not my reality, I don't live there anymore, and mean it with the quiet confidence of someone who has genuinely moved on. You are not angry at the doubt. You are not afraid of it. You are simply not available for that particular conversation. Third, and this must happen within the remaining 25 seconds, you return completely to your assumption. Not think positively, not try to believe. Return to the state of the wish fulfilled. Feel it, inhabit it. Let it be real for those 25 seconds with every ounce of consciousness you have. The reality of your desire, alive and present and already done. Total elapsed time, 30 seconds. Doubt arrived. Doubt found no engagement. Doubt was replaced with the assumption of having, and the seed, before it could take root, withered. Now let me explain why the 30 seconds is not arbitrary, why the timing is everything. Doubt is like a seed dropped into soil. The moment it appears in your mind, it is small and rootless. It has no weight, no history, no emotional charge. It is just a passing thought, flickering at the edge of consciousness, looking for purchase. But if you give it your attention, if you engage, argue, examine, try to resolve, that seed hits soil, moisture, warmth. Within 30 seconds of sustained attention, it begins to germinate. It stops being a passing thought and starts feeling like a real concern. Within a few minutes, it feels like a legitimate problem worth investigating. Within an hour, it feels like truth. This is why you go to bed certain your desire is done, and wake up in the morning wondering why you ever thought it could work. It's not that your faith was weak. It's that you gave doubt 30 uncontested minutes of your attention sometime during the day, and by the time you noticed, the root system was already 3 feet deep. The 30-second rule exists precisely to prevent germination. When you redirect within that window, when you refuse to give doubt the sustained attention it needs to feel real, the seed falls on concrete. It has nothing to grow in. And it dissolves not because you defeated it, but because you simply withheld the one thing it cannot survive without: your attention. Let me tell you about a woman who came to me after 2 years of practicing these teachings with almost nothing to show for it. She was not careless. She was not lazy. She was, in fact, one of the most disciplined students I'd encountered, faithful in her practice, serious in her study, genuinely hungry for the truth of this. But nothing was manifesting. I asked her to walk me through her practice. And what she described was this: each evening, she would do her state, akin to sleep. Practice vivid, emotional, fully inhabited. She'd feel the reality of the loving relationship she desired. She'd fall asleep in it. The session was, by every measure, good. And then the next morning, doubt would arrive. And she would spend the rest of the day trying to overcome it, trying to convince herself, searching for proof, building arguments against doubt's case, cycling through every what if it doesn't work with a responding, but it will work because. Exhausting herself daily in this internal courtroom, prosecuting and defending simultaneously. 2 minutes in the state of the wish fulfilled, I said to her. 22 hours in the state of doubt. Which state do you think is manifesting? She understood immediately. The shock of it was visible on her face. I gave her one instruction and one only. For 7 days, your sole job is to catch doubt within 30 seconds and return to your assumption, not to manifest the relationship, not to understand how it will come, not to find signs or evidence. Just the 30-second rule applied every single time, without exception. 3 days in, she noticed something she had not expected. The anxiety was gone, not because she had convinced herself, not because she had found proof, but because she had stopped giving doubt the sustained attention that made it feel real. Her assumption of the wish fulfilled, which she had previously allowed to be constantly undermined, was finally getting to exist without interruption. Within 2 weeks, she met someone. Within a month, she had the relationship she had imagined. But what she told me afterward, what she said was the real gift was not the relationship itself. It was the discovery that doubt had never actually had any power. It had only ever had the power she gave it. Every single time. I want to offer you a reframe that will permanently change how you relate to doubt. Doubt and faith are not opposites. They are the same thing pointed in different directions. Both are assumptions about your reality. When you doubt, you are assuming with conviction, with emotional charge, with creative power that the thing will not happen, or that you do not have it, or that the law will not work for you. When you have faith, you are assuming with equal conviction that it is done, that you do have it, that manifestation is inevitable. Same creative mechanism, same power, same process. The difference is only direction. This means, and feel the weight of this, that doubt is not your enemy. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you, that your faith is inadequate, that you are somehow unworthy of what you're trying to create. Doubt is simply misplaced creative power. It is the same energy as faith, accidentally aimed at the wrong target. And when you practice the 30-second rule, you are not destroying doubt or suppressing it or overcoming it through some act of spiritual heroism. You are simply quietly, quickly, repeatedly redirecting that creative power back where you want it aimed, back to the assumption, back to the wish fulfilled, back to having. There is no battle in this. There is no struggle. There is only the calm, practiced act of noticing where your attention has landed and choosing, again, to place it somewhere else. That is the entire practice. Now let me give you the 7-day training. Choose one desire, just one, something specific, something that matters deeply to you, something that doubt tends to visit regularly. For 7 days, this is your only job. Catch doubt within 5 seconds of it appearing. Dismiss it without engaging one clean phrase, no argument, no apology. Return to your assumption within the remaining 25 seconds. Every time, without exception. Not unless this doubt seems reasonable. Not unless I really do need to figure this out. Every doubt, every time, 30 seconds or less. Keep a simple internal tally if it helps. How many times did doubt appear today? How many times did you redirect within 30 seconds? Not to judge yourself, but to build the awareness, to become what I call a doubt hunter. Someone who has trained their perception to catch these seeds the moment they fall, before they ever touch soil. At first, doubt will appear many times each day, perhaps dozens, and that is fine, that is the training. Each catch, each redirect, each 30-second return is a repetition, and repetitions build new neural pathways in consciousness. Every time you refuse doubt your attention, you are sending a signal: this is not the reality I live in. This thought gets no ground here. By day 3, something will shift. You'll notice doubt appearing less frequently. And when it does appear, it will feel thinner, less substantial, like a voice that knows it's not going to be listened to, gradually losing conviction. By day 7, something will feel genuinely different. The assumption of the wish fulfilled will have a weight and solidity it didn't have at the start. Not because you found proof, not because circumstances have changed, but because you've been choosing it steadily and repeatedly over the alternative, and consciousness has registered the choice. Continue for another 7 days, and then another, and watch what happens to doubt. Let me tell you what the end state looks like. Not the manifestation, though, that comes, but the internal state that makes manifestation inevitable. After consistent practice of this technique, 2 to 4 weeks for most people, sometimes sooner, something permanent shifts in the foundation. Doubt doesn't stop appearing overnight, but it begins arriving with less force, less conviction. It starts to feel like a stranger knocking at a door they know won't be opened, rather than a resident with a key. And then one day you notice, and this is remarkable when it happens, that doubt passed through your consciousness without landing. You saw it the way you might see a car drive past a window, and it continued on its way and you never even reached for it. Your consciousness has been retrained. It has learned, through weeks of practiced redirection, that the assumption of the wish fulfilled is the only reality you acknowledge. And doubt, starved of engagement, denied root, withered by consistent indifference, simply stops arriving with the same frequency. You have not suppressed it. Suppression is pushing something down while still giving it energy underneath. You have replaced it, cleanly, repeatedly, completely. The new assumption has become the stronger pattern. And when that happens, when the assumption of having becomes your mind's natural resting place, the state it returns to automatically, when attention drifts, manifestation is no longer a project you are working on. It is simply inevitable, because you have made the wish fulfilled the only sustained reality in your consciousness. And consciousness, which always creates from whatever it most consistently is, has no choice but to produce the physical equivalent of that state. The law is not complicated. It is not selective. It does not require perfection. It simply responds to what you are being, most of the time, most consistently. Be in the assumption, and let the law do what the law always does. So here is what I'm asking of you, starting tonight. Not a dramatic commitment, not a complete overhaul of your life. Just one rule: doubt gets 30 seconds or less. Every time it appears, and it will appear, as many times as necessary, until the pattern is broken, you catch it, you dismiss it without ceremony, and you return to your assumption. That's it. Not forever, not as a lifelong spiritual practice requiring iron discipline. Just until the new pattern is stronger than the old one. Just until the assumption of the wish fulfilled becomes more familiar, more automatic, more you than the assumption of doubt ever was. And when that day comes, and it will come, if you are faithful in these 30 seconds, you will look back and understand something that cannot be fully conveyed in words. That doubt was never your enemy. It was never powerful. It was never even real in the way it felt real in those long, exhausting hours of fighting it. It was simply where you were pointing your attention. And the moment you pointed elsewhere, calmly, quickly, without drama, it ceased to exist. 30 seconds. That is all it takes. That is all it has ever taken. Catch it, dismiss it, return. It's done. Good evening. This is Neville Lectures. Until we meet again in consciousness, assume your greatness, refuse doubt its 30 seconds, and live always from the end.